Fox News, Sunni insurgents probably have a hold of American-made Stinger missiles and a lot of other weapons after taking over Iraqi military bases. Take a look at our wall now. Stinger missiles are shoulder-fired. Attackers can fit them in vehicles and on helicopters. So obviously they're portable, making them even more dangerous. They're used to take down aircraft. Remember, Iraq officials say ISIS fighters already took control of hundreds of thousands of weapons last week, including AK-47, rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and artillery shells. Of course, that's on top of all the tanks and other armored vehicles they reportedly have. In fact, they've been talking about the Humvees, the American Humvees that are rolling through the cities as they kind of go through. Retired Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff joins us now. Sergeant Duff spent 20 years with the U.S. Marine Corps. We're glad to have you today for your experience and expertise. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Harris.
First of all, what can you tell us about those handheld rocket-propelled grenades that they have?
Well, essentially, the handheld rocket grenades, they can be disposed. They basically can be used multiple times or single use. They're shoulder carried. Also, they can penetrate our armored vehicles. So essentially, they can penetrate a tank. They're usually used for anti-tank weaponry, or they can be used against armored personnel vehicles. So essentially, if you're going at any of these ISIS people who are holding one of these, you can essentially be destroyed, regardless if you're in an armored vehicle or not.
Do you have any information about what we would have left behind on these Iraq military bases? Because as we learn about what these guys are collecting, that would be good to know.
Yeah, essentially about 40,000 weapons have been confiscated, we appear, by the ISIS. They have taken over armories and some of the brigades. So some of the weapons that are also in our concern are, for example, the M1A1 tank. 280 of those tanks were provided to Iraq during the war. This vehicle in itself is a highly mobile tank. It has the great agility. It was racing across the desert during Desert Storm. It's not very fuel efficient, mind you. It has a 490-gallon tank, and it can go 265 miles on one tank. Essentially, though, it can go from 0 to 20 in 7 seconds. So it's basically a very rugged vehicle. 280 of them are with the Iraqis right now. So if they have confiscated this weapon, we are at a huge disadvantage. It's a great tank. It has served America well, and we hope it's not going to be serving ISIS.
All right. One of my key questions for you when we come back from this commercial break is going to be, how would these guys have the expertise, the training to use some of this gear, because some of it is specific. So we're going to ask you to sit tight. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
And back with us now, retired Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff joins us. And Gunny Duff spent 20 years with the U.S. Marine Corps. And before the commercial break, I wanted to know, so if the insurgents in Iraq have their hands on upwards of 40 or potentially upwards of 40,000 pieces of weaponry that we left behind on Iraq military bases, how difficult is it to use some of the things that we've been showing people in the video? Those tanks, for instance, those Abrams tanks. Do they have like a user manual that's pretty easy to figure out?
Well, first I must correct myself. It's 400,000 pieces of gear have been taken, so not 40,000. So that's even a larger amount. Second of all, we have to remember that some of the people that are part of ISIS have probably already been trained in the Iraqi army. Some of the Sunni people who have joined up may already be trained with some of the tanks, and they also have the Syrians that have also defected potentially from their own armies. So I guarantee there's people who have operated tanks that are within this. And again, it's not rocket science here. So you get in there and you can start figuring it out. They might tear up a few gears, but they'll figure it out.
Wow. Okay, let's move on to what potentially they have. Any air power?
Yeah, well, we're hoping that they don't have Kiowa helicopters. We did provide Kiowa helicopters to the Iraq government, OH-48s, and what we're looking at is that these are primarily a reconnaissance helicopter. However, they can be armed. Again, we kind of go back to, can they fly them? If we have Syrian people who have defected from the Syrian forces, yes, they could potentially have pilots. Pilots haven't been known to defect from Syria in the past. So if you have an armored helicopter that is capable of flying and shooting, we are again at another disadvantage. The Iraqi army is really going to be at a disadvantage if they have that equipment.
Can I ask you a question just about defending? Because, you know, if America gets involved in this militarily and we carry out airstrikes, how efficient, how successful could we be given all of this weaponry?
If they have it, nothing's been verified yet. These are all potential gains that they may get. We haven't confirmed that they have obtained any of this. It does appear that they may have gotten a hold of some of the M1 Abrams, but we're not sure what the numbers are. Yes, we're going to have a lot of difficulty, and it's really going to be heartbreaking for us to have to shoot down our very own equipment that we have provided to the Iraqi army. But bottom line, we can't have this stuff used against us. We're looking at ISIS becoming a new terrorism organization. So this isn't about helping Iraq. It's about helping the entire world not have a future al-Qaeda take over just like Osama bin Laden did.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about what's there. And I understand that full-tracked armored personnel carrier. What?
Yes. Okay, these are armored carriers that are used to carry troops throughout the desert or any other conditions that they have to endure.
Wow.
They're armored, so they're protected from bullets and normal grenades. They basically can manage over a lot of hostile terrain, much like the tanks, except they can go up to 40 miles an hour. They can hold up to 11 infantrymen. So my guess is they'll probably stuff about 15 or 20 ISIS in there because they're probably not going to have a lot of the gear that a lot of our infantry does carry. But it protects their men from any artillery. So essentially, again, the people that we are trying to get could be in these armored vehicles that can protect them. They can travel great distances and essentially take over Baghdad.
All right. You may not be able to answer this question, but it seems so obvious. And viewers have to be asking the same thing. How in the world did the Iraq military leave these things just there? I mean, where are their soldiers to? And I know some of them now are under fire, but some of these items haven't even been gotten to. So what's happening to secure it?
Okay, so up in the northern part of Iraq, where the Americans had not trained the army in the last 3 or 4 years, essentially that army was not as engaged as you will see down in Baghdad. So when Mosul was taken over, they fled. That's how they got a hold of all this. That army was not the strength of the army. Now, however, we should have been more proactive. Now, the army down in Baghdad, I expect, is going to be much more fierce and a lot more strategically capable. We had stuck around. We put $60 billion into their training. Let's hope that the Baghdad people of the army are able to sustain combat against the ISIS.
Well, and of course, what we're also learning is that Iran has sent some fighters in there, too, on the ground.
Yeah.
They're
trying
Baghdad.
to defend the Shias.
So, I mean, that's going to change the scope of things as well.
They're defending the Shias, yes.
Gunnery Duff, thank you very much for your time, for your experience today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry.